There's this sweet and powerful verse in Isaiah. It's chapter 35, verse 6. It's definitely a prophecy, I believe, of Jesus Christ. It's a prophecy of the Mashiach, the Messiah. It says this. Listen to it. It's really good. It says, Then will the lame leap like a deer. Person who's crippled will leap like a deer. Healing of a crippled person who's lame in their legs or something. Then it says, and the tongue of the dumb shout. It says, and the tongue of the dumb, the person who can't talk, shout for joy. I think Mark remembered that verse as Peter spoke. Peter may have referred it to him when Peter told Mark to write this, or he spoke all this stuff and Mark wrote it down. That verse is probably in his mind. I'll tell you why. Because, stay with me just for a second, we have what's called the Septuagint. Can you say that if you're a young person? Septuagint. It's the Greek version of the Old Testament. 740 years before Jesus came, or so, that was written. And so that Greek word is the same Greek word that is used in Mark chapter 7. In this last passage in 7, it says this. See if I can find it. It says, he says he had an impediment, something wrong with his speech. That word is the same Greek word. It's only used once in the New Testament and only used once in the Old Testament, and that's the same word. So here's the story. Jesus and his disciples, and who knows how long this took. Jesus and his disciples were in this area, if you remember. And then it says here that he went up here through Sidon, right up here. So he traveled about 22 miles up here, and he was in there. I don't know how long he was there. And it doesn't say anything that he did. It didn't say if he taught. I don't think he did, probably. He didn't say if he healed anyone. Probably not, maybe. But, not everything is recorded of what Jesus did. The books would be like so many. And so from there he came through Sidon, and then he came all the way over here. Now, I don't know if he looped way over here. There is a river that he might have crossed right in there. One of the rivers starts with the letter L. I'd have to look it up again. It's not in the Bible. But anyway, he came over here, came all the way over here probably, looped like a horseshoe or something, and he came down right in this area through Hula, all the way there. 120 miles, probably the whole distance. He came right there in Decapolis. Do you remember Decapolis? Decapolis or Decapolis? It was the region of 10 cities, which is on the east of Sea of Galilee right here and southeast. So all this area right here is Decapolis. And those 10 cities, is like an alliance among each other. It's like a confederacy. And for defense and also trading, they kind of work together. And sometimes it was 10s, it varied at different periods and all. But he went over there, he came over there in the place of Gentiles still. See, he's not in the Jewish area, Galilee. He went up here and around here. He's not coming back yet to his own people. It's kind of like probably the peace before a storm. He's preparing, and he's hanging out with his disciples a lot, teaching them, sharing with them. Good stuff. And then friends, evidently they're friends, of this deaf guy, and they came bringing the deaf guy to Jesus. They heard he was there, straight, get that deaf guy, come here, let's go get him. Jesus had visited earlier, if you remember, he cast out those demons from the two Gerasenes, in that area. And so they heard that he was there, and they got this man, don't know his name and all, and they brought him to him and continually begged, please, please. They pleaded with that. Well, God is moved by people's desperate feelings. And so Jesus was moved. And he came with a need, and it was deafness. He couldn't hear. Poor guy. He just couldn't hear. He was deaf. Now, because of that, evidently he had a problem with his speech. Now, in my opinion, and there's a lot of people that think this, that he couldn't talk very well because he couldn't hear at all. And so it was difficult. Now, it's possible he wasn't born that way, could have had an injury or kind of his hearing left over years and he couldn't hear. He was deaf and he had a speech impediment. It reminds me of Moshe. Remember Moses in Exodus, where he even said, Lord, I have something with my speech. I don't know if it was an impediment or something like that. But anyway, impediment means something, a difficulty with it, something that was hindering. His tongue was tied. My tongue, by the way, when I was a little boy, I was tongue-tied back here. I had something in my birth here that caused me to be tongue-tied. And as a little boy, little baby, I don't know, probably 1-2 years old maybe, they cut that and loosed it. I kind of remember vaguely there that happened. So this is a hearing thing. And I love that though it's physical, there's a lot of stuff that we can gain from it spiritually. Oh, Lord, open my deaf ears, I might hear you. And my eyes, I might see you. Give me eyes to hear, see, and ears to hear with. And this is what it says here. So he departed from that Tiras and Sidon, Tyre and Sidon, and came down into the Sea of Galilee. Right over in that area, and it says through the midst of the coast of Decapolis. It was on the east side of the sea, and they brought unto him one that was deaf, and had a problem with his speech, and they beseeched him, they begged him to put his hand on him, put his hand upon him. So I don't know if they were Jewish. Definitely in that Decapolis area, it was mostly Gentiles. He's still in the Gentile area. Although some of those cities had a lot of Jewish people in them too, in the records there. So lay the hands is a Jewish thing for anointing and all that. And they wanted him to lay their hands on him. Now, he did lay his hands on him, but not the way we would think. Like, usually you go like this and you pray for someone. Look what Jesus did with this guy. He basically, it says, and he took him aside from the multitude. I like that. Probably because it's kind of an embarrassing feeling, like all these crowds are around him. And he pulled him aside, stay back. And he pulled him aside for more personal contact, and he probably just didn't want to get this feeling of like the attention on him. So he pulled him away from everyone. Disciples probably held the people back or something. And so, and then look what he did. He took him aside from the multitude and put his fingers in his ears like this, kind of open up the channels there, kind of maybe put his fingers in his ears. And he spit, and we'll get to that later, and touched his tongue. Probably he spit on his finger and touched it. Really strange and different, huh? And looking up to heaven, looked up, he sighed. He sighed and said unto him, now it's probably Aramaic, possibly Hebrew. People not sure if it's an Aramaic or Hebrew word, probably Aramaic. And he said, it's E-P-H-P-H-A-T-H-A. And that's actually pronounced Ephatha. So it's Ephatha. Ephatha. He said that, which Mark goes ahead and translates it. He tells us what it means. Be opened. He just commanded it, which is pretty powerful. I think that kind of indicates that he wasn't saying, oh, Father, I pray that you would heal him in your name or whatever. He just said, be open yet. He commanded it to be open. Guess what happened? His ears were open. And immediately, favorite word of Mark, he uses that a lot. Immediately his ears were open. He immediately heard. Just think about the power of that. And the string of his tongue, that string is like bonding, like a chain type thing, the bondage, the fetter was loosed. His tongue was loosed, and he spoke immediately, just started speaking plainly. He could speak earlier, but couldn't quite understand you. It was hard for him to speak. He probably couldn't get all the words. And he commanded them that they don't tell anyone. He kept doing that. I think that's kind of him trying to keep this messianic thing secrecy in his being a Messiah, because they would be like a fervor and they'd try and demand him to be a militant military leader, like be our leader, and they try and force him to be king, like it says in John. And also because of just a nationalistic, revolutionary guy who would, rise up and all. But, and also he wasn't trying to be popular and all. He was interested in teaching people and healing. I mean, 31% of Mark is made up of healings. 31% is healings and deliverances. Pretty powerful, or at least healings, That's 1/3 of the whole book is that. And he commanded them, like really strong, don't tell anyone. But the more he charged people, like this and over, the more they did a great deal of publishing it. They did a whole lot. They got out there and really proclaimed it after all. And they were beyond measure astonished. They were like shocked at this, like, wow, look at this. Like, it is pretty powerful. And saying, oh, he has done all things well. Like, it was good. Kind of reminds you of Genesis chapter 1, and it was good. And it says, he makes the deaf to hear and the dumb to speak. Deaf and the mute. By the way, this guy could have been deaf and mute, like he couldn't say any words, but deafness sometimes can be combined with muteness. It could be one or the other or both, but I think he was able to talk. So this is just quite a story here. First of all, let's go into this here. It says, the Greek word there is to speak with difficulty, to hardly talk. He couldn't hardly talk and all, so that's what that is. And then here are the 6 actions. Let's go over this just briefly a little bit. So it says, number 1, fingers in his ears. Now, my opinion, as I've thought about this, is that all these touches, 3 out of 6 of them are he's touching him, is a sign of compassion. I love people, and I just want to hug them, squeeze them, like hug people. I love people. And so this touch is a feeling of compassion for this guy. So but it's interesting what he did here. He puts his fingers in his ears. He touched his tongue with spit. Right here, he took spit and touched his tongue. I think right here, what he's doing is that this guy couldn't hear anything, even if he shouted or at all. So while he's preparing him, he's going to go, I'm going to touch I'm going to heal your ears. I'm going to touch this right here. Your tongue is going to be loose. I think he's indicated visually and physically. He's showing him what he's going to be doing. So he touches him, he does this, and the guy's going, oh, you're really going to do this? You're going to really heal me? He's indicating to him visually, I think, is what's happening. So he put his fingers in his ears. Maybe he did something more there, opened them up with the power of God all of a sudden. Spitting, touching his tongue. The spit, by the way, is in that ancient time, especially with more important people, they felt like it was medicinal, like medicine type thing, or power. There's power in life and healing that comes from that. I don't know, that's what they thought. Maybe he wanted to indicate to the guy, this is what's going to happen to you. And they kind of knew that, spit has power in it, especially from important people. There's even a story about the emperor Vespasian, later, that has something about the idea the guy wanted him to spit on him his blind eye so he could be healed. But anyway, fingers in the ears, spitting, touching his tongue, which is cool, looking up to heaven. Like he looked up to heaven, and I think he probably put his hands up like this, I don't know, and is kind of showing the guy, I'm looking at God, because God is in me, God is with me, God is here, and I'm going to heal you, but, we're going to let God do this here. It's from God, the healing. Looking up to heaven. I love the word sighing. It's used a lot in the Old Testament and sometimes in the New. One of my all-time favorite verses, and I say that a lot about a lot of verses, is Romans 8:26. Likewise, the Spirit helpeth our weaknesses. He helps our weaknesses, for we know not what we should pray for as we ought, but the Spirit himself makes intercessions with groanings. That word is sighs. And it means more than just sighs. Sometimes it's literal groanings, but sigh. And I've experienced that hundreds and hundreds of times when I'm in the presence of God. I go, like I feel like this the Spirit of God in me. He's filling me and all, and he's using me, and I feel sighs that come out. He did that a lot, by the way, in other places. And one of them is John chapter 11, he groaned within himself. He sighs before he, like, so I think there's power there. It's the Spirit of God in him that's causing him to sigh, in my opinion. And then he said, be opened, Ephatha, Ephatha, Ephatha is what that is. And then he got healed. Very, very cool story. Very significant. In the Gentile area, this guy probably was a Gentile, maybe it was a Jew, it doesn't say. And that guy got delivered and healed. Wouldn't that be cool, to experience and watch? So there's a really cool story. I hope you got a lot out of it. God bless you.